Hey, my name is Leah Marville. On paper, I've achieved many things that one would equate to success and even happiness. But I know all too well that we don't experience the peaks of our journeys without traveling through the valleys. Along my own journey, I have been inspired time and again by the way others traverse their own. Life for sure will give you lemons, and I believe our lemons turn out to be our greatest lessons and the guide to our purpose here on this earth. We each have a story that brings its own unique message into the world. This is the true value of the individual, the ability to view the world through a lens that has never belonged to anyone else. The goal here is to share the stories of incredible people in an attempt to inspire us all to tap into the vast potential we each possess. It is my hope that these stories will always remind us that it is indeed possible to create something beautiful and sweet from the seed of that which may seem impossibly sour. Because that is life, and this is Life and Lemonade. Hi guys, welcome to another amazing episode of Life and Lemonade TV. It's all about telling people's stories. We believe everyone's story is a part of history and that each story forms the fabric of this great big society that we now live in. And today's guest is special to me because I met her in Trinidad and Tobago, where I lived, and she is from Trinidad and Tobago, and so we have that in common, but she is so much more than just that, which I want to now get into. Welcome, Tennille. Tennille Amor. Tennille, is that your biological name, Tennille?
My legal name is Tennille de Freitas, so you might be familiar with the de Freitases in Trinidad.
So I have cue cards, guys, because it's pretty serious, so I had to write it down. But Tennille is a singer-songwriter, and she's an equality advocate. She's been a peace ambassador as well for the United Nations, and in fact her song "I Am a Girl" was the anthem for International Women's Day. Correct. And she's a musician. She's worked with the biggest of names. I have Diddy here, I have John Legend, I have Shaggy, and there were so many other names, just big names in the industry. And I know right now you're working as a writer with Chance the Rapper and a bunch of other
with his team.
Teams,
with Chance's team.
So there's a lot that goes on for you musically, but then also equally, Tennille has invested her time and her energy in her charity, which is epic, which is Everyday People Initiating Change, which I really love, because their work is about bringing water to communities in Tanzania. I wanted to start where you're at, which is using your music and your voice as a messenger of love and equality. And where did that originate? Why make the choice to do that?
For me, I've been in the industry for a while, and I initially wanted to just establish myself as a Caribbean artist because you have to represent, and on top of it, of course, like, I just love Trinidad and Tobago and the culture and the fact that was always home base for me. So my family has always been there, and we traveled around the world, as you said, my entire life. So having Trinidad be home base, and for me, just working with artists like Bungie Garlin, and then I worked with mr.vegas and Shaggy, like you said. Obviously Vegas and Shaggy are from Jamaica, but for me, just having a Caribbean heritage and influence in my music was something that was important to me, and still is important to me. But then I wrote "I Am a Girl," and that got picked up by the United Nations and as their anthem for International Women's Day that year. Like, it was a few years back, and that, for me, because I have my work with Epic, the nonprofit as well. And as you said, we drill water wells in Tanzania. We focus on community growth and development and the sustainability of each of the projects out there by working with the local communities and making sure that they have ownership over all of the work that we do there. When the song got picked up by the UN, for me, it was the fusion of those two worlds coming together, of where my activism outside of the music was able to kind of now become a part of the music, and that to me felt like I had finally found the path of where I'm supposed to be. And it's funny that you mentioned with Amor and the name Amor. Honestly, I didn't know that was going to be a big part of my message or a big part of my brand, I guess. When I chose the name, I was just looking for names that sounded good with Tennille, honestly. And Amor fit, and it was something that felt right. And so it's interesting because I have also grown into the name, and my work has become more and more representative of what that name means and the weight of that name, you know. So yeah, even in Tanzania, it's funny because we were given local names, and in Tanzania they don't know most of the people that we were with, they don't know like Tennille Amor, they don't you know. We're in a village in a community in Tanzania, and we were all given Swahili names based off of just who we were and how people felt about us energetically. And the name that they gave me was Upendo, which in Swahili means love. You know, so it was so crazy because that was how, without even knowing that was my name or the name that I've chosen as my name, that was the name that was given to me as well in Tanzania. So it is a big part of what I represent now. Equality, love, you know, those are the things that speak the loudest to my heart and my soul and my existence. So that's where it all came together.
It's beautiful because it's like it's almost like you feel like you're living up to your name, but in some way, to me, as I sit and I hear this story, it's to me it's like all the components of your life, the things that are inherently you are actually just coming together, and you, as the path continues, you realize it. But it's almost like life has provided this, or set this scene for you already, you know.
It's really,
for someone to be as invested in equality as yourself, and then you wrote I Am a Girl, which is all about empowering girls and acknowledging that there's a queen within every girl and that kind of thing. Your life has to set you up, or your core beliefs, who you are as a person, has to move you in a way where you feel so compelled to fight this cause. It's not, you know, the average person doesn't wake up and do this, right? So, and I always believe, and here on Life and Lemonade, we always go back to the beginning, because we believe that core beliefs are formed from our beginning, right? Usually in our childhood, or from some major occurrence that may have happened to us in our childhood or in our formative years. So I want you to take us back to your childhood, which was very adventurous, it seems, just living and moving around. Tell us about that and how that impacts or informs this cause.
Yeah, well, I'm the only girl with two brothers, right? So, and with a Caribbean father and mother, but Caribbean men, you know, for the most part are very old school in their thinking about gender roles.
I like that phrase.
You know, I mean, for lack of a better way of saying it, or just to be kinder about it, I guess. Right, and my dad, I love my dad so much, and we're super close. You know my dad, and he's amazing. But I grew up with very, you know, old school ways of thinking about how boys behave or how girls behave, or you know. So what my brothers were allowed to do were different from what I was allowed, or how I was perceived within the family. And I hated that, like really, really couldn't stand that. So I fought against it from young. Like and I think over the years, my dad realized how strong I was, and how it's interesting because I always joke with my dad that God gave my dad me for a reason, to kind of, you know, and I think it's interesting with a lot of men when they have daughters, their perspectives on these things change, you know, and especially maybe even how they perceived women before, or how they, and then they have a girl, and it's like, oh, this is, you know, and they learn so much
and
from,
they live life through the lens of
their daughter. Yeah. As you said, the childhood, my childhood certainly affected my everything that I'm doing now. Even in Egypt, when we used to live in Egypt, we lived in an apartment complex where the kids on the other side, there was a trash where they would, I guess, a dumpster or whatever on the other side of the wall of our backyard, but it was the backyard shared by everyone in the complex, right? And my brother and I used to climb up on top of the wall, and the kids were on the other side of the wall, and we would kind of just, as kids do, joke and play. And but I was very conscious from 5 years old, 6 years old, that there was that divide of, we weren't wealthy by any means, but certainly more wealthy than the kids that were on the other side of the wall, right? So I was conscious of the fact that they were going through this trash heap, like trying to find something to eat, whereas we were on the other side of the wall with a swing set. It wasn't just ours, but still, you know, like we grew up with, and then of course in Trinidad and Tobago, there's a very big divide between those who have and those who don't, right? And so from young, I was just exposed to the fact that because of what I was born into, and again, we didn't have a lot when we were growing up, but my dad worked his, I don't know how, if we could say ass on this.
There you go. There you go.
I did. But my dad worked really hard, you know, to get where he is today. We grew up with the understanding that if you have, or if you are in a position where you can speak or do for those who are not in that same position, then do it. And so for sure, like all of those things were instilled in me from young. And then on the gender equality side, like I said, just being around, and then in the studio, like I'm around men all the time. You know, it's still unfortunately so we have to learn to navigate through that. And for me, it was never about saying, you know, it's interesting because there are different ways I think that feminism is perceived. For sure, of course, I'm a feminist. I believe in the equality of men and women, right? But I think that the way that feminism has, it's interesting. I feel very strongly about the fact that the minute that we don't allow everyone to come to the table or have a conversation is the minute that the conversation, in my mind, can only go so far. Right? So for me, it's never been about saying that excluding men from the conversation or saying that we're better, or saying that, never about that at all. It's just about saying, hey, we want a seat at the table too, but we want y'all to stay. Like, we want y'all to be at the table with us, right? We're not trying to just say, like, me personally, like, that's not how my approach at all. My approach has always just been about, hey, I want a seat at the table with you, and I want my words to have impact and not just be welcome there because of how you perceive me to look or how you know what I mean. Like, I would prefer if I'm being welcome there because of my skill set and because of and I also don't want to be given a hand up or a hand out rather. Like, I don't want it to be based off of, because you're a woman, I'm going to invite you to the, I want it to be that, hey, listen, like, I have exactly
offer. She's good at this, and
exactly.
I can see how you, with a heart like yours, you can find yourself in an environment with so many different varying examples how you can find yourself on this cause. And I keep saying with a heart like yours because I believe that not everything lands for everyone. And I think that, again, you come to certain thoughts or certain ways of thinking through what your natural personality is, but also an exposure to various things. And the way you describe your life, you know, you lived in Egypt and you lived in Trinidad and Singapore and all these different things. It's almost like before you're 20, you're like this global citizen, right? And it shapes your mind and your perspective of the world. And I think that, you know, in life, all we have is perspective, right? And I'm similar to you in terms of being a global citizen, having lived all over the place. And I guess in some way that's how I'm here on this couch.
Exactly.
Doing this and lemons and all this jazz.
I love it. I love it so much.
But I wanted to get a perspective from you, like, you know, having grown as this global citizen, having seen these many places, what do you feel are the things that are common amongst us as humans, and what are the things that are different?
I think the things that are common are our desire for love, our desire for community, our desire to be seen and understood and to be heard. I feel like everywhere I go, I love that you're doing this, because everyone does have a story. Right, you know, everyone does have an interesting story too, you know, to really get to know people and to sit with people and to learn about what makes them them. That's been the most interesting part of and I think, as you said, that's why I am who I am, is because I'm very well traveled based off of just, you know, my upbringing and my dad's job that had us all over the world, where some people would have found that difficult, which in some ways it was, because I continuously had to make new friends and say goodbye to old friends and figure out how to release things, which you and I have spoken about before, is not my natural tendency. My natural tendency is to hold tightly to those who, you know, who I love and who I've definitely I'm very loyal and very I have a hard time moving on from things,
from people.
From people. Yeah. I really think the differences have to do with, oftentimes I do feel it has to do with how well traveled people are, or how much they purposely expose themselves to different cultures and different types of people. If they don't, it's clear, it's evident if it's a person who has just been within their own bubble, exposed to just people who look, sound, behave, act like them alone, right? And it's also clear when someone has decided to go out of their way to expose themselves to different beliefs or different perspectives or different ways of being. And I mean, even so, for me, formatively, Egypt was where I went through my childhood, and we went to an international school. And so I was surrounded by kids who, I mean, every shape, color of the rainbow, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like my exposure was all my friends were different
in the world.
I was always exposed to diversity, right? And so, and then of course, Trinidad and Tobago, we are the most diverse country. The Caribbean,
think
people don't understand that. What I have always been exposed to. So for me, it's not unusual.
So obviously I met Tennille in Trinidad and Tobago. We met on a boat through a mutual friend of ours.
Was that when we met? I feel like we met before that, but yes, but that, I know what you're saying.
No, I think we met before, but then that was, I think, the first
when
time
we bonded.
And Trinidad for me was, you know, of all the countries that I've ever lived in, Trinidad was the most impactful. And I say this to people all the time. It was the most rounded kind of life experience where you're exposed to everything and every possibility of anything that you can think of in a person, in a way of life, in food, in just like anything, the highest of highs, the lowest of lows, everything in that one tiny
island place. I know.
And then you come out into this world and you realize how different the world is, and then you just realize that there's so much work to be done. And I commend you for the work that you do, because it's not easy. It's not easy to be a Caribbean person coming out into this global society. It's not easy to be a musician coming out into this male-dominated global world. It's not easy to be different. It's not easy to be of a different race or a different. You know what I mean? It's all compounds on top of it, and then to take the work up is quite a task. But I think that to be a soldier of love,
love that, yeah,
is, to me, that's the ultimate accomplishment. When did you know you wanted to do music? Tell me about that journey. Like, when did you decide?
Really young. I started writing when I was about 9. I have a songbook that is really funny, and it's interesting because even in that songbook, I was writing about things like racism, things like pollution and the planet, and it's so funny. I look at it and I'm like, man, this was in me from so young, of where I cared about the things that I care about now, and so it has always been with me. And music, it's funny though, because when I first moved to New York, I moved there for acting. Like, that was where I was like, I'm gonna, that was, even though I was still doing music and I was still, that was also what I wanted to do, but I thought that acting would be my focus. But I ended up just going to the Bronx. I met these rappers who became like my best friends, and I used to go to the Bronx every weekend, and I was in performing arts school, right, for acting and for performing, and every weekend I used to just go to the Bronx, like get on the 1 train and go up to the Bronx, and
that is the longest ride ever.
So long, but I would just be sitting on the train and with my headphones and, like, the typical story of and I would go up to the Bronx and go to the studio and do like the hooks on these songs, and with shout out Broadway, Showtime. My music evolved, and my style of my sound and everything is just continued to grow and become more and more. The thing about me though is I'm so inspired by different music, and my taste is so eclectic that I feel very strongly about not ever wanting to fit into a box or be put into a box, or whenever people are like, well, what genre do you, and it's so hard for me to answer that, especially as a songwriter too, because I do also write for different artists and different genres and different, so it is that is always hard when people are like, well, what genre would you say that your music is? In 2020, I picked up the guitar, and I really, I taught myself to play, and it was the first time of feeling fully self-sustainable, of where I would write before a cappella, like I would just write without any music, or I would work with different producers and stuff and write to beats, but being able to just pick up a guitar and play and write, and then I just started producing as well. So I taught myself Pro Tools. That's what I'm saying. I haven't left the house. I have a studio in my home now, thank God, in LA, and I haven't left. Teaching myself production, teaching myself engineering, Pro Tools, so I could record myself. And so it's been a journey, and I've always said, for me, as long as I'm growing, as long as I'm evolving, as long as I'm getting better and continue, and as long as the passion is still there, I keep going.
Yeah, I think it's amazing now that you're based in LA, and you've worked with such great people. I mean, I'm sure we would love to hear the experience of what it's like to work with like a Diddy. But how do you balance keeping this center of who you are with all the great possibilities that this industry and this Hollywood presents?
I have been very fortunate with the people that I've been able. The Diddy thing was actually, I did a commercial with Diddy where he was picking the next up, kind of the next up in their respective fields. And I was chosen as actually was the only singer outside of, like, it was Diddy, DJ Khaled, and French Montana, and then 10 of us who were just from, you know, one of my friends who's actually an actress, and then someone who has a sneaker line, and someone who was Beyonce's stylist, and, you know, just different people were brought together, right? Ty, shout out Ty. But, yeah, and I was there as a singer, and we did the commercial, and it was all about hustling harder and let's get it, and, you know, that whole thing. And it was a great experience. I've met Diddy on a number of occasions outside of that as well. He's always a good person, really, really good to me. And yeah, and then just the teams, as you were saying, like, I'm working with different teams who are working with really incredible, massive artists. And so I, you know, the ones who I personally, like John Legend has been a friend for a long time, and so I wrote a song with him, and my friend Pixie Lott, who's a big artist in the UK, she's one of my best friends. And then with Shaggy, you know, Shaggy, just as from the Caribbean, he was a mentor for me for years, and was so generous with offering up his studio in New York, where I would just go and work and record whenever I wanted to. My focus this year is to do more of that as well, or just being in LA. Being in LA, it's been amazing to be able to just be tied in with some of these writing teams who are phenomenal, and obviously have worked with some really incredible people. So yeah, I'm just fortunate to have been given that opportunity to work with some of these people. Yeah.
And then how do you maintain, like, your identity in it, or do you find it challenging too, or is it something that comes easy?
I used to find it very challenging. I think, you know, it always comes up, you know what I mean? Like, as a female, when you walk into a space, most men are men. You know, not to say, like, it's not to give a pass, oh, men will be men type of, no, but there is, you know, there's a dynamic between it.
I love how you're trying to, like, really try to word
I'm trying
this
to, yeah, because I'm
in a fair way.
Yeah, because
it's not about man bashing, but or anything like that. But there's and I don't mean to take the words from you, but just even in me relating to what I think you're about to say, it's that as a woman, there's a certain preliminary dynamic that happens before emeritus dynamic happens.
Thank you for saying it, because that's exactly right.
Yes.
Exactly right. You know, we often have to deal with the fact that we are seen before we're heard.
Right.
We are judged before we're accepted, right? So we do have to figure out how to best navigate within those spaces, and how to. It's such a fine line, because it's like we have to learn how to present ourselves in a way that is strong enough that it's clear that we're there for business, but not too strong that we
push.
And it's frustrating. It is a balancing act. And it is frustrating. It's annoying that we have to do that, to be honest.
I don't even think that the words describe the balancing act.
No, they don't. But every woman knows exactly what it is. About, you know, every woman knows what that is. It is a dance.
It's definitely a dance. And that's why I asked you that, you know, because I'm not a musician, I'm a model, and I've been a lawyer in the past in a very male-dominated, in many cases, the only female in a male boardroom. And it's, you know, it's a dance. It's and to maintain your identity, and there's some things that you, in instances, you have to bite your tongue on, and then there some things you have to stand up, misunderstood, be docile sometimes. Like, it's just to be able to find this nice, comfortable way of moving forward in the direction of your dreams.
Yep, for sure. oftentimes it can be innocent too. Like it doesn't always have to be the Harvey Weinstein approach, right? Like it doesn't always have to be the gross, disgusting men, or it's not always that. Sometimes it's really just, I think, genuine attraction, or genuine where if your mind is not there, or you're just strictly coming in a professional sense, and you're not looking to, but you are looking to connect, or to, because you are looking for authentic connection and a genuine rapport and dynamic, that it makes it easier to create, or to, because you have this bond, but you're not looking at it from a sexual perspective, or from a place of wanting anything else to come of it other than, let's just create together. Like, let's just be excited about this creation that we can do together, and have it just be that. Whereas, and it could be that a woman could take it the wrong way, or that you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not even necessarily to just
direct it to one. It's really just about breaking down conditions and societal constructs that we naturally fall into, like ways of relating that we naturally fall into. Men being men and women being women, and sometimes the roles switch and it overlaps, but for sure. I mean, we didn't plan to go here, but I'm happy that it came up, because it is the experience of being a woman, and this is, a lot of, it's along the same thread of equality. It's about understanding each other genuinely. That is what equality is about. It's about stripping away all the constructs and all this is how it used to be, or how it's just supposed to be, to come down to just humanity. Right?
Completely.
So tell me a bit, and we are jumping all over here.
I love it.
This is all conversational, guys.
Amazing.
Off the
amazing.
fly.
Amazing. Throw those cards away.
So tell me a bit about Epic. I feel like music is an expression of you, but then Epic is like a representation of like your beating heart. If I may say it like that.
I love that.
So tell me about that and how I got started, and what is it like?
I started it with one of my best friends, Alexi Panos. I don't know if you ever met Alexi.
I know she's your best friend.
Yeah. So her son is my godson now, Kingston. Oh, he's like the cutest child ever. But anyway, Alexi and I started Epic when we were just young and naive, and really just had this desire to make a positive impact in the world. And we went to Tanzania through another organization, and that organization unfortunately was not authentic in what they were doing, as far as they said that we were going to be drilling this well, or digging a well, which we had no clue about the water crisis at the time either. We had no idea. So by staying in touch, we found out that the people who we went through didn't end up following through with everything. They had involved the entire community, and then they just covered over what we had been digging. They ended up covering it over with cement, and nothing ever came of it, right? And so because we found that out, we felt a massive obligation to the family, BB, who I love BB so much. We felt an obligation to come back and actually do what that organization said we were going to do. And so we started our own organization and called it Epic. And the whole premise of it being everyday people initiating change was that we as everyday people have the ability to initiate positive change in the world, that we don't need all the things that we think that we need, the enough money, enough of a big enough platform, enough success, enough time. Sometimes it comes down to just having enough time, or feeling like you don't have enough time to do those things, right? So for us, it was about saying we can do those things. If you have a strong enough desire to want to make an impact,
you can.
You can make an impact, right? Like, you just have to take the action to do it. We've been able to maintain what we're doing out there, and just go into different, it's very word of mouth. We're super grassroots, so organic. Everything is it's a tiny team of us who, you know, we have the local team, and then those of us who are based here or in the States, scattered throughout the States, just me, Alexi, and then Connor, who leads trips for us when we're not able to be there. But yeah, we before COVID hit, we had fellowship programs where people could come out. They would raise money beforehand, then come out and see where the money was going firsthand, and stay with our family out there and just be exposed again, culturally exposed to different culture, exposed to a different way of life. And it's amazing because, again, that to me is what really truly shapes or can transform someone's heart or someone's perspective when they're thrown into a different culture and thrown into. It's interesting because Tanzanian culture specifically, or I would say, I don't want to say African culture because obviously African culture is very different depending on where you are, but for sure East African culture and some of West African culture. I've been to some of West, you know, Benin specifically. It reminds me so much of home, of Trinidad. Like, it's just very similar. Yeah. So for me, it wasn't a massive culture shock at all. It actually felt immediately comfortable for me, and immediately like home, and immediately familiar. The warmth or the community, or the just sitting down at a table to eat dinner together and to pray before the meal, or to do those things, were things that was just, and then everyone's auntie and uncle and this and that's how we grew up, right? Like, that's how we grew up, as if like one massive, it's like family
village, like this kind of village lifestyle mentality kind of thing. That's amazing. It's true. I think the first time I went to Kenya, I was like, this is Trinidad.
Exactly.
It looks everything like Trinidad.
So true, right?
Feels like it. The so vibe, true. The people, and even our music, you know, Caribbean music is derived from Africa. I mean, all music is derived from African music, but it's specifically Caribbean music. Like, you hear it, Afro beats and Caribbean, you know, soca or reggae, or there's dance hall, like all of that has an African root. So when we dance, when we, you know, tassa and all that, like all of that feels like, you know, people are like, what's tassa? Unless you're from Trinidad, that, you know, how does it go? Like,
you know, But terrible, by the way. That was not a good.
They'll be like,
that's not how it goes.
Fast forward to now, after 2020, which was, you know, for everybody, was life changing in some way, some form, right? Today, where you're at, with all of the information of who you are behind you, what is the vision for your future, for your life?
Yeah, it's interesting because all of us are living in a very uncertain time, living through an uncertain time. So much of what I thought I was going to do last year, I didn't do, but I did so much more than what I thought I would do, which is interesting. So a lot of what I had planned to do last year, I've now transferred into this year. I have been talking about putting out a full-length album for so long because of how my life has gone in my career, and especially because of what happened with I Am a Girl, and then that took me all over the world. I was performing in different countries and speaking at different events and at the UN, and all these things that happened as a result of one song, which I didn't expect to spend so long on that one song. But
and what was that experience like?
It was amazing. It was honestly amazing. I was exposed again to even more culture in different countries, and utilizing again the film or the activist in me, and being able to speak on panels with some of the biggest, most influential people in those spaces and being put on the same stages as them, or giving keynotes and doing, which I wasn't ever thinking was going to be part of my, I remember as a kid I would always think, oh, it'd be so cool to be a UN ambassador, or to be, and then being put in that space without really without actively going after it was interesting. Time has gone on, and again, my road that could have been like this was more like this, right? And so in a lot of ways I've been frustrated with myself in the sense of being like, man, but I've said I was going to do these things by this date and I didn't do the things by that date. But then when I look at what I have done in that time,
That's what you're meant to do.
Yeah. Also, I'm planning on doing a remixed version of I Am a Girl, and it should hopefully be, I don't want to give too much of it away. With Epic, we continue to do the work that we do in Tanzania without being able to physically be there, which is heartbreaking to me, that because of travel not being open yet. But I still will go back as soon as I can go back. So Epic will continue. Through Clubhouse, which is like super strange of a platform, but it's a platform right now.
It's
so yeah,
new and on fire. Right now.
I have a thing.
You performed yesterday.
I did perform. Yeah. So we have a room called Art in Action, connecting creatives on a mission, which is very much what I'm about, right? And what you're about. And so yeah, we do it every Thursday, plugging on. Hopefully Clubhouse still exists by the time this interview comes out.
I think so.
Yeah. Outside of that as well, I'm starting another foundation that is actually going to be contributing to people who are using their platform in that way. So that's actually a first. I have never even said that out loud to anyone outside of
first here, guys.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, the King's Table Foundation. So yeah, the short version, if there is one, and I've never again like shared this on a public platform but it's, I heard, you know, you have been given a seat at the King's Table, so why have you been begging for scraps with the dogs? Claim your inheritance. It is the place that I operate from since receiving that message, of knowing that we have all been given a purpose and a path, and there's a plan for all of our lives. And whether we choose to tap into that or not rests entirely in our own hands, and we have that free will and the ability to choose what path we take in life. And so often and for so long in my life, I was on the path but running off in different directions that were not part of what I should have been doing. I'm thankful for all of those detours, but I'm now very much grounded in that understanding that it's a choice between where you want to be, and if you want to have your seat at the table, you have to claim your inheritance. So that's where I'm at.
Message, guys.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you next, like, what do you want women and girls to know, to understand?
I want women and girls to know and understand that, I mean, with I Am a Girl, the lyrics say it truly, like the hook of the lyrics. I am a girl, I am a queen, I can be anything I want to be. Woman of the world, living my dreams, I'm going to show you what I can achieve. Little girls love that song, and I purposely created that iteration of it, the first version of it, to be very sing-songy, very almost nursery rhymey, very Jay-Z's Hard Knock Life, or Nas's I Know I Can, or Gwen Stefani, Holla Back Girl, Pharrell, Happy. Those were the songs that I had in mind in creating it, to where I wanted little kids to sing it, and for it to get stuck in their heads, and for it to be something that resonated or continued to come back to them in moments of doubt, or in moments of not remembering our place in the world. We can be anything we want to be, right? Like we can women of the world, like we are part of the bigger society, right? And living our dreams, you know, I'm going to show you what I can achieve. Like, do it then, right?
What do you think is misunderstood largely about, what does the world misunderstand about us?
As women?
Yeah.
Oh, we are diverse. So to speak for women at large, I can only speak from my perspective as a woman, right? Like, I can speak about my experience, or I can speak about, but I can't speak about Kim Kardashian's experience, for example, right? And not to but, or whoever. We're so diverse. Like, I don't relate to that, right? But I can respect it, and I can see it for that's what that is, right? And so I think maybe that's what's misunderstood, is that we're not all the same.
Yeah.
But we are, right?
Yeah,
it's so it's interesting because, you know, we're equal and individual at the same time, which is
with everyone,
all of us. Yeah.
So give me a quirk of, like, Tennille.
A quirk.
Yeah. What is, like, something, you know, we all have something that
like
makes
something
us,
strange. I have so many strange. I'm very strange.
You think?
Man.
Whatever you
I don't like writing with blue ink. Like, I have to write with black ink for some reason. I really don't. Like, it's like, it really bothers me. If someone hands me a blue pen, I'm like,
Are you serious?
Yeah, I don't know why.
Wow.
Is that a quirk?
Yes, that's 100%.
Yeah, I hate.
So no blue pens ever.
No.
Like blue or just blue ink?
Blue ink. I like blue. Blue's fine.
Wow.
Yeah. Thank you for saying you love my parents. My parents are great people. Yeah.
They are great, and to be in line. I met her parents I've met them several times, but we connected recently on a Bible study call, and that was really. I like that your parents are there in that space with you too. I think it's extremely important.
I mean, I started that before the elections because there was so much unrest, and everyone that I was talking to was just feeling so uneasy with what was happening. And I personally felt like I needed to do it for myself. I did a prayer and fasting week leading up to the elections, and then I just opened it up on social media and with different friends of just being like, does anyone want to join me in this? And I thought it was just going to be me and my parents, right? And then, so that's why they're there, is that I, shared it with them, and now it's become just a weekly thing that we do, which is amazing.
So this segment, there's this pack. I don't know if you guys have ever heard about this game.
I'm excited for this. No, I love games.
We Are Not Really Strangers. It's a card deck, and it's about breaking the ice with people and getting to really know people. Yeah. And it aligns with what we do here, because We're Not Really Strangers is essentially what I would have said at the beginning, is like, we're all a part of this history in this moment in time, and we're actually working together. We might not understand that, but every single person in society is working together to move this society in this period of time forward, right? So true. We all have a unique place. So I think We Are Not Really Strangers is an extension of that, and they have different packs or whatever. So I got myself a pack. I love it. And I want you to pull a card, just one card. And
exciting.
Ask yourself a question. We could go deep.
What do I think I'm most sensitive to? I touched on that, and it's truly the struggles of others. Like, I'm very sensitive to what is happening in the world, and what the injustices that happen impact me sometimes in a way that could be paralyzing. What are you what are you most proud of?
Yeah.
Right now, I'm most proud of my relationship with God. I believe that it's a big part of what makes me who I am. And everything we're talking about, the shared humanity stems from the fact that we were all created as equals, right? Like we're all created to, and again, equal but individual, right? Like I don't want to negate from the fact that we are diverse creatures, and but that if God is love, then we are love. If what we were created to be was to love one another as your neighbor, right? Love your neighbor as you love yourself. Then we should always be operating from that space, and we should be viewing everyone as our neighbor, right? And as ourselves, right? Yeah. So we have to first, the thing that people forget is that with that, they forget it's as you love yourself. So you have to first love yourself, right? Like you have to first really truly get to a place of knowing and loving yourself in order for you to then be able to love others, right? And love them as you love yourself. So in my, and the first is love God above all else, right? So that to me is what in my journey, if I were to die tomorrow, that to me is the only thing that ever really matters is am I living based off of those two principles? Like, do I love God above all else? And do I love my neighbor as I love myself? I love this. This has been amazing, truly.
What would your parting words be?
We are in a time where division is rampant. We're in a time where it's easier to focus on the differences. It's easier to focus on the... We need to acknowledge and address the injustice that happens continuously in this world, right? Like we need to acknowledge and address the fact that there are things that have been happening that are unacceptable and need to change. And my opinion is that in order to fully and properly address those things, we all have to come together, sit at the table, and figure out a way to solve them together. And that means sometimes sitting across the table from someone who you wouldn't typically sit across the table from, or who you wouldn't even want to sit across the table from. But until we get to a place where we are willing to sit across the table from people that we don't want to be sitting across the table from, and until we're willing to truly listen. And understand where everyone is coming from, we're not going to progress as a society. We won't. We will remain divided. We're going to remain angry. We're going to remain, and which is, we should be angry about certain things, right? But what is the end goal? What is it that we collectively want to achieve? And if the end goal is equality, if the end goal is unity, if the end goal is love, then it's going to be uncomfortable for a while. It's going to be difficult. But to seclude myself, or to remain in a bubble, or to remain in only speaking to people who agree with what I think, doesn't progress us as a society. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. And your neighbor is everyone. So not just the ones who you want to be your neighbor. It's not just like the ones who are cool, or the ones who have the same, again.
Not the people you choose, it's everyone.
Everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone,
guys. That's powerful. That's powerful. Thank you for being here.
Thank y'all. Thank you.
And I wish you all the best. And I'm sure we'll be seeing more of you. But I wish you all the very best.
You too.
In your work, in life, in love, in all of it.
Yeah.
Love, light, and possibility, guys. And I'll see you next time.
Mwah.